The nation sets its eyes on one of the most important events of Parliament's calendar, the State of the Nation Address, which is SONA, on Thursday. We now cross to the Parliament, where a media briefing is currently underway. Let's take a look.
Paula Charles, E-News. Connected to the issue of possible disruptions by the EFF, there have also been complaints by political parties that the security has changed this year, got far more stricter. There's also been reports that police and Parliament security have been trained in addition to what they usually are trained. Can you talk to those issues? Thanks.
Yes, Janet.
Thank you. Also to the speaker, it's Janet Hurd, Media 24. Just to elaborate on that, if we tried to get some clarity last week about security, and I don't know if it was just me, but I felt that we didn't get any detail, and I'm not sure if the speaker or perhaps the head of security could answer, but can we get categorically an answer on whether the public order policing unit is going to be on the premises or not? Or in other words, what special extraordinary arrangements are being made? But specifically, if you could answer on the public order policing. Thanks.
Is there a final question for this round? Okay, thank you very much. The presiding officers will deal with some of the questions assisted by the Secretary to Parliament.
Thank you. I'd like to respond to the question on security, whether there are, the direct question is whether public order police will be here. And the other question said, are we in fact training staff with the police? The POA brings together the executive authority of Parliament with representatives of parties. It discusses a whole lot of issues. It discussed in its last two meetings issues around the security arrangements around Parliament. It agreed that it will continue to respect the provisions of the powers and privileges, the rules, and the Constitution. In line with that discussion, we have looked at the protection services of Parliament. We are looking into, in the long term, at the service of Parliament. So yes, we are aware that there are speculations in the media about whether or not the parliamentary protection services are trained. It would really be blind of Parliament not to ensure that people in any section of Parliament, whether they are in finances or in security, are not from time to time given a chance to renew whatever capacity that they need to carry out their responsibilities. But we are also aware that in the media there is speculation, and in fact we have been directly accused of procuring and acquiring bulletproof vests and some such nonsense. We have not. So clearly the long-term preparations and the capacitation of Parliament's protection services is there. Is it geared, as the media is saying, towards protecting one man on the 12th of February? Categorically, we say no. You have also said to us that I cannot, where I'm sitting, say yes or no, the public order police will be in Parliament. The Powers and Privileges Act does enable us, if the need arises, and where we are sitting with the Speaker and the presiding officers, all of us, we are hoping the need does not arise for us to use that provision of the powers and privileges. Therefore, we are hoping that we will not have to call on any police to come to Parliament on the day of the State of the Nation address. Thank you.
The dinner, why continue the dinner? We incidentally just received a formal letter from the Democratic Alliance telling us that this would constitute a wasteful expenditure, that they are going to try to mobilize other political parties to follow their suit. And we get that letter today, 2 days before the function. We would have liked to have had this information last year so that we don't include them in the numbers for purposes of preparation. They have, in fact, led to serious wasteful expenditure in Parliament. They must account for it. If we had our way, we would ask them to pay for every plate, 3 courses, or whatever costs the number is, because they didn't let us know in advance. It's a very bad one. And because I think this is much as we are quite sensitive and obviously appreciative of the broader point they are making about the need to be sensitive to expenditure in the environment in which we are doing, but you do not yourself contribute towards that. We think these are things that we are always mindful of. The reason that we have decided, firstly, to not go out and stay internally and use the internal resources. We have also explained that these events are not politically significant to come together in this way. Some of the people that we bring here will not be able to make their own independent arrangements as our invitees at that time of the night when the State of the Nation address takes place. So we think that it is not very wise of them to have taken the decision they've done in the way they've done so. But quite frankly, what it means is that we are going to have that loss of people who ought to have participated in that thing. Advanced planning is absolutely important, and they knew about this all along. They have participated in the structures of Parliament preparing for this, everything. They only tell us today that they are, by the way, we are cancelling our coming over there and so on, knowing what expenditure it has meant for Parliament. So they can't really, their complaint is not valid. That's the one I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Maybe just a quick follow-up on this whole issue of the dinner and the cancellations and the boycotts and so forth. We need to make the point that we take this issue very seriously because we find it to be quite opportunistic, and it's more of a political issue more than any other thing. We need to understand, like the Speaker said, we are hosting the President to present the State of the Nation to the South Africans. We have invited guests. In a normal course of events, as Africans, in the first place, if you invite people and host them, you would offer them something to eat or drink. It is only African to do that. And for this opportunistic argument now to be used to say that by offering people something to eat or drink as a host, as Africans, it is fruitless. We find it to be quite politically opportunistic. And like the Speaker said, this is an occasion for South Africans to look at themselves and be happy. And if they are not happy, then therefore an opportunity will then be created to raise then their unhappiness during the debate of the State of the Nation address. And therefore, we take this thing very, very seriously. And like the Deputy Speaker said, Probably the DA must then explain how they are going to pay back whatever that has been budgeted to host them and their guests. Thank you very much.
Speaker, I think especially because we have had to entertain a request for more accommodation of the guests. So it is taking us by surprise that you ask for us to look at bringing more people as your guests, and then you turn around and you say, I'm no longer coming. There's one outstanding response to the question which was directed at the Speaker, which arises from the President's interaction with the media over the weekend, where he said he would be directed by the Speaker. SONA is a joint sitting. The President is indeed right. He will be directed by the Speaker and the National Chairperson of the Council of Provinces. They will not just be directing, we will strictly be following the rules, and we will confine ourselves to the rules. The rules of Parliament are informed by what we understand to be one convention, precedents, what is in the laws and what is in the Constitution. So I think the President can rest easy, South Africa can rest easy. We will be confining ourselves to what is doable in the rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Presiding Officers. Second round of questions. It will be you, ma'am, and then Lulama, Paul Vecchiato, and then Paula for second helpings. Yes, please identify yourself and the media house you're coming from, and then please ask your question.
Thank you very much, sir. My name is Terry Standen. I'm a Member of Parliament. And as a Member of Parliament, I would like clarity.
I'm afraid, ma'am, this is a press briefing. I'm sure members of Parliament do get an opportunity to interact with the presiding officers. Can you just give first priority to the media, people who we invited here for the press briefing by the presiding officers to ask their questions? Can I, with due respect, ask you?
Okay.
I'm sure time can be made for members of Parliament to access in the same way that members of Parliament always access the presiding officers. Can we give priority to the media, people who invited here to interact with the presiding officers?
Absolutely. I think they were given preference in the first round. If I may just
No,
ask a question
but this is a press
and get
briefing,
clarity under which conditions outlined by the presiding officer will public
Ma'am,
order policing or other
with due
police be
respect,
called into
ma'am,
Parliament?
with due respect, please, I beg you. Let us give the media people the help. All right, Lulama, Paul, and then Paula Charles.
Lulama Maja, SABC. Just a follow-up, Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP. You're saying that you will be guided by what the constitutions and the laws are saying. I'm the side, ma'am. Yes. Can you just give us an insight as to what exactly the Constitution or the laws that you will be guided by are saying? Secondly, the Speaker has talked about their frustrations of limited seats when inviting guests for SONA. Just want to know how many guests will be sitting in the public gallery? And on your invitation, is it Parliament who is inviting, who is choosing who should represent business, labor, or religious organization? Or are you sending out invitations to those umbrella bodies so that they can choose who's coming?
Okay, Paul.
Good morning, everyone. Could either the National Assembly Speaker or the NCOP Speaker please give us a yes or no answer if elements of the public order policing will be stationed close to the National Assembly chamber on the day and on the parliamentary precinct? Thank you.
Paula Charles, ENCA. Just to be absolutely clear, and I'll ask this as a very pointed question, is there a rule that prevents a point of order or a question as the President delivers his State of the Nation address?
Okay, Gay Davis.
Gay Davis, Eyewitness News. Thanks. On that last point, the briefing that was given to us by the secretaries to the National Assembly and to the National Council of Provinces made it clear that convention are regarded as hard and fast as rules. So while my understanding is there is no rule that specifically prevents points of order or questions during the State of the Nation address, the convention is that there are none. Can you tell us whether this is what you're referring to when you say that you will be applying the rules as well as the conventions and traditions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No further questions for this penultimate round. Okay. Okay, Paula, can you just repeat your question, please?
It's very connected to Gay's question. Is there a rule preventing a point of order being raised by a member of Parliament or a question during the President's State of the Nation address?
Very much. The presiding officers will now respond to the questions.
The question from Ms. Lulama says, what are these provisions? What does the Constitution and the law says? The Constitution defines the powers of Parliament. It also enables Parliament to go and deal with the matters of its internal arrangements. It therefore enables Parliament to come out with its own rules of procedures or whatever. It also enables us to come out with legislation. We did inherit the Powers Privileges Act. It gives us the authority to act in particular ways. One of the most important committees of Parliament is the Rules Committees and the Joint Rules Committees. And those then form the instruments at the disposal of Parliament to run its own affairs. Parliament, like any other community or a representative of a communal authority, also carries a culture. And it does rely on precedents, what has happened before, convention, protocols. And the South African Parliament just does what it has always done, what its other fellow parliaments do in the world. And that is why you cannot say that in South Africa we will not have a convention. This is not the way you can. Convention is not a law that we accept. But the rulings of the presiding officers, just like in the court, do set a precedence which can then be relied and be fallen back onto. So that is what enables us to say that we have been enabled by the laws and the rules to run the internal matters of Parliament. The Constitution also is very clear. It sets out the separation of powers. And that is why the Parliament and its precinct is squarely under the authority of the presiding officers. I hope I have responded to you, ma'am.
I want to deal with the issues raised by Lulama in relation to our arrangements for our guests in the gallery and who is there and on what basis is it decided. It's a convention that was started in the period of the leadership of both Madiba and Speaker Frini Jinwala. that we would go all out to share the gallery. I mean, we could have gone as a practice. We could have gone for a view that says every member of parliament must bring a spouse. So most of those seats would have been taken up just on that. Zarina, how many seats do we have in the gallery? We have 721 seats in the gallery. We have 490 members when you also include the National Council of Provinces. So you could take up most of the seats that way. But as a new democracy, which was an open democracy, and a democracy that was saying this parliament is the parliament of the people. It can't just be for us and our families. So yes, political parties must be given some seats, but we never have every member of parliament being able to invite a partner. So proportionately, political parties are also given tickets, but it's never enough for each and every member across the political parties to have tickets to bring a spouse or a partner. We then invite the judiciary.
Well, this story is basically about South Africa's top 3 mine bosses, namely Glassenberg, Mr. Motsipe and Desasco, packing in millions despite, the strikes at Marikan and so forth. What are your views?
This cannot continue because this is a recipe for disaster. Because there's no way workers can be happy if they see these kinds of figures that are being tossed around.
It says that Desasco's salary is 443 times the 12,500 rand that the miners were asking for.
And on what basis?
Whoever we feel we would like to invite. The deputies are allowed 5 tickets each, and then the rest are given to political parties, as I say. The largest political party gets 150-something tickets. 154, and then proportionately, every party has a certain number of tickets. But as I say, it's never possible to accommodate all members of parliament so that they can also have a guest. But Zarina, can you add to what I've answered?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think what is important to note is the diplomatic corps is also invited. And in the rotational categories, there are 5 different rotational categories with different people involved in that. That gets presented to the presiding officers on a yearly basis, and they decide on the rotational categories. So we never have the same categories and the same people coming in the same categories every year. And I think you've covered the whole gallery now, ma'am. Thank you.
No, they want us to add to the rules as they apply to SONA. This is in the order of business of Parliament. The State of the Nation address is the President invites the three arms of the state and requests Parliament to convene that occasion to be able to address the nation, and then subsequently his address is debated. So that's the general practice. So we know that rules for questions are made according to each of the houses for questions. So those rules for questions do not apply here. And in any case, points of order ought to be about, if they are to arise, they are about procedure and or privilege. So unless they are about those two things, they can't be about any other thing else, even if they were to arise theoretically. And so what will happen on that day, as it has already been responded to, we do not expect members to ask questions. They have been informed in their induction and subsequently in the practices that occurred about what happens at the SONA. So that is not what we expect. We hope that that will be how things will turn out. And if it doesn't, the Speaker has authority to maintain order in the House. This is the authority of the Speaker and the Chairperson in this instance, because both of them are presiding over the joint sitting. So they have authority to ensure that we have order in the House, in the conduct of its business. So we can't speculate on what's going to happen on that day, at least from where we are sitting. We go ahead with the assumption that things will go according to how they have happened in the past. And should any other situation arise, it will be dealt with in the way Parliament is able to do, given its authority, including the authority of the presiding officers. That we expect them to exercise the responsibility they have for that order in the House.
Thank you, Presiding Officers. Do we have the final round of questions?
Sorry, my question wasn't answered. Can you just give us a yes or no, please, on whether public order policemen will be deployed in and around the National Assembly chamber on that day? Thank you.
The Speaker says that we must ask Zarina to answer that. The security, Zelda, sorry, Zarina. Why do we give you so much job here? Especially because the responsibility for security is that of the security cluster. They are responsible for that. The Speaker and the presiding officers are responsible for protection services, and if the necessity arises, where people will be, whether they'll be in or out, that's their business, quite frankly. But I don't know whether you want to add to that.
Zelda.
Thanks.
Just a quick one before Zelda comes.
Oh, Zelda. Okay.
You know, I find that question quite interesting, Speaker. In that as we speak, as we are seated here, at the entrance of Parliament, there's police. So if the question becomes whether if they will be allowed to be in the precinct of Parliament during the State of the Nation address, they are already here. They've always been here. No, the question is precinct. No. Not unless you explain to us exactly what is public order policing in Parliament. In any case, what will they be doing in the chamber?
Well, what were they doing in the chamber on the 27th of August? But the public order policemen are the ones who are in charge of riot control, right? I know there's a whole semantic issue, but they're known as public order policing. They're distinguished by their red name badges. Are they going to be deployed, and are asked, not in the precinct, but in and around the chamber on that day? Thank you.
Zelda?
Thanks. I think the question has been answered in part, Chair, but maybe to add to that, when it comes to police deployment it is the police who decide, depending on the situation, operationally, or what might be determined by unfolding situations. So we can't predetermine, neither is it our position to comment on whether the police would deploy, who they would deploy, and how they would deploy. And maybe in addition to the comment, just to confirm that the police deployment is a prerogative of the police operationally, and also that the State of the Nation address is a joint occasion, it's the occasion of the state, and all the security arrangements are commensurate with the nature of that event. So if there are any further questions, I think we could probably anticipate how many, if, etc. Those are operational decisions and decided by the executive, by the police.
Okay, thank you very much. Final round of questions now. Charles, Yan, and the final question will come from Gay Davis. Thank you.
Okay, Charles Duplessis from Media 24. Given what we've just been told, and the chair of the NCOP has told us that Parliament and its precincts are squarely under the authority of the presiding officers, if the public order police are deployed here, whose authority are they under?
Chair, to actually follow up on that and to get back to the Powers and Privileges Act, my understanding is, and I'm no lawyer, as you know, but my understanding is that that sort of decision is taken by the Speaker or the person designated by the Speaker, if I'm quoting correctly. Who is designated by the Speaker? Is Mrs. Holtzman designated? Is the police as some sort of amorphous body designated? You said right at the beginning, and that's very respected, that the rules of Parliament and the Powers and Privileges Act will be followed and the Constitution. Of course, otherwise you'll be illegal. But if we go back to Powers and Privileges Act, do I understand it wrongly?
Thanks, Gay Davis, Eyewitness News. It follows on from the questions by my two colleagues. Powers and Privileges Act, as I understand it, spells out that the police can enter without the authority of the Speaker when life or limb is at risk, when there is an imminent danger of somebody being hurt or worse. What we seem to be hearing from you is that that's not really going to be a consideration. It's simply handed over to the police, to the security cluster to decide. What we are hearing is that there could be a situation where, and I'm going to put this hypothetically, that Mr. Malema stands up, asks questions, refuses to obey an order to sit down, to desist, will then have to be removed from the chamber, shall we say, resists, and there needs to be some degree of intervention in order to take him out and to restore order to the House. That's the hypothesis. I'm not saying that that's necessarily going to happen. In that event, who has the authority to summon whatever force is required? Because there's no danger to life or limb. So we don't see that the police can then make an independent decision of your authority, Speaker, in terms of the act to come in. This is the issue that we have been wrestling with and trying to understand. I hope that helps. Thanks.
Thank you. That was the final question. The presiding officers will now respond to the question.
As we've said, the State of the Nation address is a special annual event where the state is hosted by Parliament. The whole state is hosted by Parliament. Annually, ahead of this event, the three arms at the right level, the organs, the relevant organs would come together in relevant structures and sit and plan and prepare for the State of the Nation address, including the city. You know, there's a whole network of structures that start to work together, to a point where I, sitting here, and the chairperson sitting here, cannot possibly have all of the detail and, you know, the range of activities and at which levels they happen. But in keeping with the law and the Constitution, the relevant structures start to interact and they start to be convened to prepare, and as Zelda keeps saying, some of the issues are at operational level. And therefore, they are not issues that, you know, the presiding officers in detail would be able to say, this is what happens in this minute. However, if you are talking about the House itself, the two of us would be presiding. Because the two of us are presiding, that is a situation, therefore, where the actors, the role players, are much fewer than a situation where there's a whole lot of people out there that are expected to intervene from minute to minute. But again, sitting here, we cannot possibly sit and speculate about what's going to happen. We really are just not going to be speculating. We hear the stories. We hear the stories and we hear whatever you are expecting. You know it or you don't know it or you expect it, but we don't, because really it's not, we're not in the business of speculating. At the point at which anything happens, we will deal with it as it unfolds. We will have to come to terms with it as it happens. And we will have to apply the rules, the conventions, the practices, the protocols. We'll have to apply everything that is a part of the parliamentary culture.
Thank you very much to the presiding officers. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. The press conference is adjourned.